What's up, everybody? I'm Simon Sabro, and today we're going to be doing a tier list video with a good friend of mine, Lance. And before we get into it, just be sure to follow me on Instagram at Simon Sabro YT. Link for that will always be down in the description. Also, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, hit that bell so you never miss an upload, all of that good stuff. Also, be sure to comment down how you felt about the tier list, anything you would change, maybe what's your top 5, anything like that whatsoever. But here's Lance. I'm gonna let him say a few words and then we'll kind of go on from there. Lance, anything you want to say real quick?
Yo, what's up? How's everybody doing? This feels surreal. I'm doing like the Leonardo DiCaprio meme where he's like pointing at the TV, because normally I'm on the other side of the screen, but now I'm here recording with you.
That actually means a lot to me. I really do appreciate that. Like, I mean that. But with all that out the way, let's just jump right into the video. All right, so Lance, we're just gonna start off here. We're gonna kind of just go left to right, and just go from there. That's cool with you?
Yeah, that's cool with me.
All right, so we'll start with Naruto here. How you feel about Naruto? Where would you put it?
Okay, I can already hear people doing the
Oh,
finger
boy.
ninjutsu on the other side of the screen trying to silence me, but this isn't going to stop what's going to happen. It's going in mid.
Okay.
Now,
Okay.
I will clarify that this is for the first 3 volumes because I only own the first 3 and 1. So
Gotcha.
just from the first 3 volumes, it's mid. Now, I'm not saying it doesn't have potential, because it does. I mean, Kakashi's probably the best part of Naruto so far. So he's definitely my favorite character, at least.
Okay.
So I'm definitely seeing some potential. And I think it'll improve as the series goes on. Maybe it'll go to almost perfect, or maybe even top 10 for me. But for right now, it's mid.
Honestly, I think just off of, because you said you only read the first 3 volumes, so I feel like that's a good place to start it, just for the first 3 volumes. Also, I didn't mention this in the intro, but Lance does also have his own YouTube channel as well as his own social media. I'll leave a link for those both in the description, so be sure to show some support. He's a great guy. His channel is amazing. Love his content.
Thank you.
Of course, man, of course. Let's move on to Hell's Paradise. How you feel about this one? I know you did do a video on this recently, so I kind of already know some of your thoughts.
This might be recency bias, but it's top 5.
Okay.
So for me, this is like one of the wildest manga I read. Now, I only got into manga last year. Technically, I collected like a few volumes before then, but last year was when I really got into it. So I'm not too far into the game, as you can tell by the number of series that I have. But I read Hell's Paradise like a few weeks ago. I got it on sale on Right Stuff, and I was just blown away by the characters, the use of the themes, the use of colors like associated with the characters, and just seeing Gabimaru's journey over it. I'm not going to spoil anything for it, because I know some people are waiting for season 2, because that's already been confirmed. But I will just say, if you were anime only like me for the first season, go read the manga, because it is better and it's uncensored.
On that topic of the anime, so I read the manga some time ago. I never watched the anime. I didn't know the anime was censored for it. That's kind of unfortunate, because I feel like a lot of the gore and just the stylization of the manga, I was really worried if that would get transferred over to anime well. So you telling me that like it's censored, dang. Okay, yeah, go read the manga for it. That is definitely.
You still see like people lose heads and stuff, but the only thing that's censored is like the Tencent doing their stuff,
got you.
You get me? But yeah,
got you.
Go read it if you want to see that uncensored.
Okay. By chance, off the top of your head, real quick, do you have a favorite character in Hell's Paradise?
For me, it would probably have to be Shion.
Okay.
Like, I like his design, but also his progression in the story.
Okay.
I don't want to spoil anything.
Okay.
Can I talk about season 1 at least?
Yeah, that should be fine.
All right. So we see his pupil die in season 1, and so that sort of starts off a character arc for him where he has to now face the choice that he made where he ran off with Neuroguy instead of going in to try to save his pupil, who was going to die either way, but he didn't step in. And that's something that sort of plagues him for the rest of the story until it's eventually resolved. So I do like his progression with that and how him and Neuroguy sort of evolve together.
Okay, I feel like in Hell's Paradise, there's really no bad character, honestly. I feel like every character feels unique and very, like, whole. Like, every character feels like they could have easily been the main character. Especially in the terms of, like, all of the, not even just the criminals, yeah, all the characters on that island feel like they could have been their own character. Just because they all have, like, their own motivations, goals, and stuff like that. Moving on, Komi can't communicate. How you feel about this one?
Could be better. It was a slog to read volume 1. I got volume 1 last year, so this is before the Viz Media app came out. I'm glad it came out, so I don't have to spend any more money on this to at least finish the first 3 volumes and decide if it's worth my time, which it's looking like it's not. And normally I like rom-coms. I mean, some of the series we'll get into later are like some of my favorites. But Komi, I just could not get into for whatever reason. It took me like an hour to get through, even though it should have been like 30 minutes with how episodic it is and how quick it is. But it was just hard to read. I don't know if I wasn't in the right mood at the time or if it was just that boring for me personally, but it could be better.
Okay.
Yeah, that's about it.
Understandable. Box of Light, what's your thoughts?
Box of Light could be better. I'd put it above Komi.
Okay.
So I got it randomly just from like seeing the cover and seeing the description on the back of it. And to give like a brief description of what it is, basically it's set in a convenience store in between life and death. And we see what happened to the patrons and the workers that happened to be in that convenience store and how they found themselves in that scenario. The chapters are pretty episodic. It sort of focuses on one character, but also builds on the other characters around them. And currently there's only 2 volumes out. I could have sworn volume 3 was coming out, but I looked for it on Amazon and I didn't see it listed, even though I could have sworn it was. So maybe 7 Seas has chopped it. Hopefully not. But for me, it's mid because it tries to handle some topics. I'm going to try to dance around this so that YouTube doesn't get angry. But I'd say for those who read it, the 2 girls who like choose a permanent solution to get out of the situation they're in, I felt like that could have been handled better, because I'm personally like someone who's a big advocate for mental health. I studied psychology in 10th grade in high school. My mom's a therapist. So I felt like that angle to Box of Light could have been dealt better. And if it had, then this could have been like almost perfect for me, because I do like the episodic nature and focusing on different characters. I just feel like that execution wasn't done well. I'm hoping that the manga improves, because it's clearly one of their first works, at least one of their first works in English. So hopefully they improve in the 2nd volume, which I've yet to read.
Okay.
How did you feel about it? Because I know you've read it from one of my recommendations.
Yeah. Honestly, it felt very like it had potential for a volume 1. It felt like a series that would get better maybe around like volume 5 or 6, assuming the story even went on for that long. And I feel like it set up a lot of exposition for things that would be more interesting as more characters come and go. And it really reminded me of, have you ever seen Death Parade, the anime? I don't know if there's a manga for it.
No, I haven't. I have heard of it, but I haven't seen it.
it has a very similar premise, whereas like this is like a grocery store. Death Parade is like a casino in between life and death. Very similar premise. And so I think because I had that notion already in my mind, I kind of like compared Box of Light to it very often in like formula, and the way the story will progress. So I think it's a little hard for me to look at it without any bias whatsoever. I do still plan on picking up volume 2 because, for one, I can say like at the bare minimum the character designs and art is very unique, and I do like it. The volume cover and spine, like just the volume decoration overall, is beautiful.
Oh yeah, I do like the cover of volume 1 over volume 2, but volume 2 does look good as well.
Definitely. I really just love like the gradient color from black to purple. It looks really good with the yellow words. It looks nice. I'm not gonna deny that.
Definitely.
Ready to move on?
Yeah.
All right. Vinland. I already know how you feel about Vinland.
Yeah, that's going above Hell's
Paradise.
Okay. That's my number 1 series. Okay. So you're anime only, right?
Yes.
Okay. Have you watched season 2?
I have not. I've heard season 2 got censored like very badly, so I'm probably gonna read season 2, but I'm probably just gonna read it from the very beginning.
Okay, so I'll stick to season 1 then, because
thank you.
Season 2 was censored, and even season 1 there was some stuff that was cut out that I guess they couldn't execute the manga panels well. Like there's a shot of what's his name, Thorkel, where he basically turns into a giant, and like there's a bunch of streak marks. He almost looks demonic in the one panel, but they didn't animate that for whatever reason. That was like during his fight, I want to say against some of Askeladd's men. I may be wrong.
Okay.
But they also changed up the order of season 1. So season 1 starts off with Thorfinn's backstory, whereas the manga actually starts off with the first fight of the Franks fighting the Franks, and that's when Thorfinn and Askeladd join in. And so season 1 sets up a lot of great characters and a lot of the great themes, like fathers and sons. It also handles religion well, amongst other themes. And season 2 continues that, but you also see the evolution of other characters. And I think Askeladd is one of the best, if not the best, antagonist in a series. And Thorfinn is probably the best protagonist out of the ones I've read. I know a lot of people would say Griffith and Guts would take those places, or the main character from Vagabond, who I forget his name. Yeah. And I don't know who the main antagonist would be for
if I'm being
that
honest.
series yet. But I do think they're very strong, and I think you could really recommend this to like anyone who doesn't read manga, but if they're a fan of history, a fan of Vikings, they will get this. Like I could recommend this to my dad and he would enjoy it even though he doesn't read manga. And so I feel like anyone can enjoy it, especially the anime. The anime has made it very accessible, whether it be the Netflix or Sentai dub or even the sub. I personally watch all 3 versions because I just love it that much.
Geez.
Yeah, I personally prefer the Sentai dub, but I understand what Netflix was going for, making their own thing. But I personally like the Sentai dub more, especially with Canute or Josh Grell, Jesse James Grell. Sorry, they changed their name recently. So they voiced Canute. So they also voiced Armin in Attack on Titan, for anyone who knows that character. So they voice Canute, and they do it very well. So like in season 1, they start off very Armin-ish, but in season 2 they sort of deepen, and like you see the change not just in the character but also in the voice work. So I think that's great. The manga is great. I would definitely recommend it over the anime, but if you had to choose either, that's fine, because this is a great story that everyone who's into the medium should check out. What are your thoughts on the anime?
Just as like an anime only, and for reference, I did watch it like around the time it first came out, so I want to say that's maybe 3-4 years ago, give or take. Um, but I did enjoy it like a lot from start to finish. And it was a series I was like, oh, it's Vikings. I don't really care about Vikings. And then I watched it and I just fell in love with all the characters. And going back to what you said about the dynamic between Thorfinn and Escalade, I think Escalade, the fact that he doubles as both the antagonist as well as the mentor character for Thorfinn, and I feel like Escalade did an amazing job at that, especially I don't want to say especially towards the end of season 1, because I feel like he was an amazing character all throughout, but the way season 1 ended, and I'm not sure if the manga is like the exact same way, I assume it is.
They did censor a few things for the ending, but it basically is the same.
Okay. I feel like the ending for that was just perfect, and I've heard so much about season 2 or the slave arc of Vinland Saga. Like I've heard that's like the peak of it. That's when Thorfinn like character development goes crazy. So it was one of those series where I was like, okay, I'll wait for season 2 to finish airing, and then I'll just watch it all the way straight through. And I just haven't like gotten the time to do so, if I'm being honest. Like when it comes to anime, I don't really watch as much anime as I used to. I think the last show I've watched was like the most recent season of Demon Slayer, and then before that I don't even remember what I watched. But that was like the only anime I've watched this year, and we're like what, 8 months in now or so.
Almost, I think.
Yeah.
Or yeah, we should be, since it's August now.
Yeah, something like that. But honestly, I'm probably gonna go with the manga. I know my brother owns all of the manga, so I'm probably just gonna like borrow it off him and just read it, or maybe I'll read it digitally. I'm not really sure how I'll go about it, but it is a series that I do need to read because I hear everyone talk about how great it is. You tell me about it like all the time. And I'm gonna take your word for it. I won't shut up
about it.
And everything you've recommended to me so far is like been bangers, so I know for this to be your number 1 series, like I take your word for it.
Yeah, if you decide to collect it, are you going the normal hardcover route, or are you going the deluxes? Because I saw the deluxes, it looks good, but it's personally not enough for me to swap over, especially with having to basically restart from zero since I have all of the hardcovers that are released in English.
See, I didn't even know there was a deluxe for it coming out.
Yeah, they showed it at Anime Expo or San Diego Comic-Con, one of those. And it's basically like the Berserk Deluxes. I don't know how many volumes the Berserk Deluxes contain, but the Vinland Saga Deluxes contain 3 volumes at a time, whereas the normal ones just include 2 volumes.
2? Okay.
So it'll be less volumes than the normal hardcovers. It's a bit taller. I would say like maybe a third taller than the hardcovers, the traditional hardcovers. But personally, the price isn't enough for me to. I would imagine.
I'm probably gonna get like the editions that it is in currently, just because the way that I hold books is very awkward, and my hands are like really skinny. So bigger books just like hurt my hand a lot.
Oh yeah.
So I'll probably get it like as it is now. And since that's like the version my brother has, I'll probably just like snatch it off of him one day. I don't know. But
we'll see. Maybe he'll be like, oh, I don't want this anymore, and you just happen to have it.
Probably. Because honestly, I think he's caught up with it all the way. So I don't know. I'll ask him about it later on. It is like nighttime now, so later in the future I'll ask him about it. But Rascal Does Not Dream of Bunny Girl, and just for reference, we'll count this as like Bunny Girl, Devil Kohai, all of them.
So that would be top 5 right below Vinland Saga. So that's my second favorite. So I discovered the anime like a year or 2 after it came out. It came out in like 2018. So this would have been right at the global event that we shall not name. So I discovered it. It was a low point for me personally, and that anime sort of brought me entertainment through it. So because of that, I have an attachment to the series, and I think the manga is really good as well. I have the first 5 light novels, So I've experienced all different mediums. I do think the light novels are the best way to consume the series because it does give you more detail, and like some stuff is cut out of the manga and some stuff is cut out of the anime, but the manga is another good way to experience it. I just wish it had a better release schedule. Like, we're getting these volumes every 2 years because they're technically omnibuses, and the world event delayed this recent one. So we had the first volume in 2018, then we got the second one right before 2020, and then world event happened. Now we're finally getting Logical Witch, which will be the third volume in this series. I think right now they're up to volume 14 in the light novels, and supposedly I hear it's entering its final arc, so I don't know what that'll be. It'll probably be about the same amount since each manga adaptation is one volume of the light novels, so we'll probably end up with like 15 volumes of the series.
Okay, I could definitely see why you'd like have an issue with the release schedule for the manga then. I could definitely see it. If you don't mind me asking, so your top 3 so far are series filled with very complex characters. Do you feel like your background in psychology leads you to be like more drawn into series with deeper characters?
Yeah, I like to analyze things. I mean, my main thing right now is analysis content. So I like to look at series and see what the author is trying to tackle, whether it be with certain characters or with certain themes that they're trying to do. And that sort of leads me down certain paths that make me sound crazy, especially when I get into like color theory with Hell's Paradise, and like some stuff doesn't line up exactly like with Gentetsu. But I do feel like it gives me another layer of appreciation for a series, seeing that stuff is sewn in the background, and I can still enjoy a series that's really surface layer. But for me, a lot of the deeper series do hit harder for me personally.
Okay. Actually, I'll give you a little fun fact. Psychology is also one of the things I used to study, probably not like as heavily as you did, but it was something I always took interest in and did a little bit of like self-studying of it, because in high school they never actually gave me the class for it. So it's something I kind of did a bit of interest or investigating into like on my own, and I think it might play a part into why I personally like darker psychological themes, usually themes that, you know, are like bring out the worst of humanity. Those are typically what I enjoy, probably for that reason.
Yeah, definitely. I was in like a online school, you probably heard of it, K-12, and so they offered like a lot of stuff that normal schools in my area didn't offer, because I live in Arkansas, which is not great school-wise. So luckily I was able to do it online, and they offered like psychology classes, computer programming, and stuff like that.
Okay, that's actually pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. Kubo won't let me be invisible. What's your thoughts?
I know I put Komi and Could Be Better, and Kubo is basically the reverse Komi, but I actually enjoyed it way more. I'd put it above Naruto, honestly. Okay. So for those who don't know, the premise of the series is this guy, the main guy, is very introverted, and unlike Komi, he doesn't want to make friends. He just wants to be left alone. But this girl named Kubo won't let him be alone. She's the only one that notices him, while all the other classmates don't notice him unless he does something to get their attention. Like in the first chapter, she gets him to dance on his desk in school, and that's when people finally notice him. Whereas if he's just sitting there reading a book, he's pretty much invisible. So as someone who is introverted, especially during high school, that sort of like called me out and like made me feel more attached to that character, and seeing their relationship evolve, because it is, I believe it's a rom-com, and you do definitely see those elements. So it is fun. I worry that it'll go on too long like Komi. I think we're at 6 volumes or 7 volumes right now, so hopefully it ends at like 10 and doesn't outstay its welcome, but for right now I'm enjoying it.
Okay, just I've never read it, but off of like the synopsis of it, it reminded me a lot of Eat Your Pancreas, just in like the
Mm-hmm.
dynamic of the two characters. Where like I forgot his name. I think I'm pretty sure for the majority of the volume he went by like main character or random guy, just like
Yeah,
not
that's
actual
what I
names.
call him.
Yeah. He was also like pretty much invisible, introverted, and I forgot her name, but the female protagonist was like trying to push him out of that shell. So that kind of like reminded me of that, but I'm sure it's like a lot more lighthearted compared to Pancreas.
Oh yeah, it's way more lighthearted.
Okay.
Like to this, you could give to like a middle schooler and they would be entertained, whereas you got to give like I want to eat your pancreas to a high schooler so they
Yeah.
actually understand all the meaning behind it.
Okay. Vagabond, what's your thoughts?
Okay, so I have the first Viz Big,
Mm.
which is volumes 1 through 3 of Vagabond. And I read it last year in like May or April. It's pretty early on, so I have forgotten quite a bit of it. But from what I've read, it's almost perfect. Like I see a lot of potential in this series. I know the Dark Sage put it in like mid or whatever, and I feel like that was a crime. I get what he was going for. He's not really into that. But for me personally, I see a lot of stuff being set up. It's sort of like what I felt when I read the first volume of Vinland Saga. I was like, this has a lot of potential. Hopefully it gets executed well. I know that this series has been on hiatus for a while now, and we keep getting rumors that it's going to continue, but I don't know when or if it'll even continue in my lifetime. So for now, I plan on reading the series up to a point where it feels like it's a good stopping point, and once it continues, then I'll start picking up after that. I don't know what that good stopping point will be, but I'll find out eventually whenever volume 2 comes back in stock, because I can't find that anywhere.
Okay. Funny enough, I haven't read like enough of Vagabond to like give my own input on it, but I will say just the dynamic of like when Dark Sage put it, I think he put it like somewhere below mid. And no, then for you to put in like almost perfect, it's like okay, that's. But also, I think Dark Sage is probably like the only person I've heard put it below like almost perfect. And it's funny because both of you only read the first Visbig, so that's very interesting to think about. I really do need to like sit and read it for myself, like more of it, to kind of get my own opinion. So I'm probably gonna. I do actually have the first Visbig. It's just kind of in a box because the cover came off, but I'm probably gonna go and read it one of these days. No promises.
Yeah, honestly, I wish it had a hardcover edition instead of the Visbig edition, because I do like the Visbig edition, but Vinland Saga has spoiled me, and so anytime we get like one of these really good seinen series, I feel like it needs a smaller hardcover. Like I like Berserk, I like the deluxe editions of Berserk, but personally I'm gonna go the paperback route because those books are too big for my shelves. I have Walmart shelves, so they're very cheap, and they'll break my shelves if I try to put it on like the top shelf. So I'm gonna have to go the paperback route for now until I like win the lottery and can afford some IKEA Billy shelves.
I hear that. Cause same goes with I heard, I'm not sure how true this is, but I heard that Gantz is getting deluxe editions similar to like Berserk and Blade of the Immortal, which I'm really excited for, and I honestly do want to get those. But I feel like for a reading experience, the deluxe editions aren't really that good for it. I feel like they're just good for, you know, decoration. They look pretty on shelves. They have really good quality, but like for reading, they're not the best experience. As well as, I agree, I also have Walmart shelves, so those would like destroy my shelf.
Yeah, they do look very good, and they demand like a lot of respect for when a series does get a deluxe edition. It's just very inconvenient to read unless you're reading it like at a desk or at a table, and personally I read books whenever I'm like laying down in bed and I'm about to go to bed. I read it to unwind so that I'm not looking at my phone right before bed, so that I get a good night's sleep. So reading it in bed, that would be a chore. So the paperbacks will be the route I go with.
Okay. All right. Rent a Girlfriend. What's your thoughts?
Garbage. So I bought into the hype like everyone else did in 2020. Okay. Season 1 of the anime came out. I saw like Giguk, Trash Chase hyping up the anime. I watched season 1. I was like, okay, yeah, I'll check out the manga. I bought the first 4 volumes. I was like, okay, where's this going? And then recently we've been hearing like all the spoilers going on about how the character has like basically reset for the 15th time, and they're like at chapter 258 or something like that. So it's like rom-coms get a bad rep for series going on too long. I think Komi has gone on too long. It should have been like 15 volumes or like even less, maybe 10.
I could agree.
Rent a Girlfriend is the worst offender because basically the mangaka has created an infinite money glitch because people, the tier 3 subscribers to Amaranth, are buying this manga to fulfill their own fantasies because they wish they were the main character and they can't be. And so I'm having a hard time getting rid of these volumes, so I might just give them to my local library, even though I'm gonna get weird looks for it, and maybe some kid will come across it. Hopefully not, because they don't need to read this. They don't need to corrupt their minds. And I will say, the mangaka has a great art style. I think he draws really nice girls. Mommy is the best girl because she actually progresses the plot. She's the only one that actually does stuff that moves the plot forward. So anytime she shows up, you're like, finally, even though she's bullying the heck out of the main character, he deserves it. We need this to progress. We need it to end. Please, Reggie, end the series.
Jeez, okay. Because I've only ever seen season 1, and season 1 was like hilariously like sad. It reminded me of like the days of watching like Heaven's Lost Property, High School DxD, you know, all of those like maybe early 2010s harem shows. That's what it reminded me of. But I've never heard anything good past season 1.
No, and it recently got a season 3. I don't know how this is getting a season 3. Maybe Japan has just been buying the Blu-rays, because I know they mainly look at Blu-ray sales for this. So maybe a bunch of degenerates have just been buying all of this season 1 disc so that they can get season 2 and season 3. And I just don't have the patience for it anymore. I have other rom-coms that need my attention. I don't need to continue this one.
Okay. Deadpool Samurai, how we feeling?
Could be better. I'd put it below Komi.
Okay.
So, Deadpool Samurai is a great gateway. It's mainly intended for the Japanese audience, so I get that I'm not the target audience. But before I collected manga, I collected comics. Like, I still collect comics. I have over 300 paperbacks.
Oh God.
Because I've been collecting since I was 11, and now I'm 22, so you can do the math.
Gotcha.
And so I mainly collect DC. Marvel is not really my thing when it comes to comics, but I was like, hey, I'll try this out, because Deadpool is one of the few exceptions. And so from a comic person's viewpoint, I think it's an okay manga. It's an okay Deadpool story. It's just not that great in the grand scheme of things. Like, I'd personally recommend Punisher versus Deadpool over this, because that series has basically Punisher and Deadpool going on a buddy cop style story where they're trying to find Taskmaster because he's like kidnapped billionaire's son. And so you get to see this dynamic of like Punisher being annoyed by Deadpool's jokes, and he constantly kills Deadpool, but Deadpool keeps coming back, even though Punisher just wants to do this job by himself. But Deadpool keeps staying around him, and so I'd say read that over this. But if you've never read a Marvel comic and you won't for whatever reason, then I guess this is a good way to ingest that character.
Okay. I personally have not read it. I don't really take enough interest in Deadpool to read it. Not that there's anything wrong with him. Like, I enjoyed his movies, but just never took the time or the effort to actually check it out, if I'm being honest.
I understand that because Deadpool is a very comedic character, and I find that comedy is hard to write in a comic or manga format.
Agreed.
And so there's very few people who can get Deadpool right, and I just feel like it doesn't really land in the manga. It's like very surface layer, like it's constantly trying to get you to laugh. Like it's trying to be like One Punch Man, but the jokes aren't hitting.
Okay.
And so it just doesn't do Deadpool right, in my opinion. Like, I definitely think if you don't read the comics, the movies have better like humor and stuff compared to the manga.
Okay. Okay, moving on. Record of Ragnarok.
Okay. So I have the first volume. I have not watched the anime because I don't have Netflix.
Okay.
But I would put it in garbage right above Rent a Girlfriend, because I feel bad putting it in the same tier as Rent a Girlfriend. I feel like Rent a Girlfriend should be its own tier.
I got you.
Yeah. But for me,
okay. I'm listening.
For me, Record of Ragnarok is basically like, it's high action, high octane, but there's no real substance to it. Like, for volume 1, it's mainly focused on the action. So for anyone who doesn't know what Record of Ragnarok is, basically every, I believe it's millennium, or every 100 years, the gods come together and they decide whether or not they should destroy humanity. And this time around, they were going to destroy humanity, but then one of the angels or whatever, I forget what kind of creature she is, she steps in and is like, hey, let's do a Mortal Kombat style tournament, and I'll choose humans to fight against you, and if they win, humanity gets to live on, and if you win, humanity gets to die. And so she chooses a bunch of historical characters. Like, she chooses Jack the Ripper is one of them. He's on the cover of like volume 4, I think.
I know Adam is in there as well, right?
Yeah, he's on the cover of volume 2. He goes up against Zeus. I have not read volume 2 yet.
Okay.
But for this first volume, they get, I want to believe he's like some Chinese legend warrior. I'm not sure if he's real or not. I'm not too familiar with that character's lore or that person's lore, but they go up against Thor, and Thor looks very different than he does in like the MCU movies or even in God of War Ragnarok. Like in this, he's very muscular, but he has long red hair and a bunch of tattoos, so he looks different than other interpretations. And Mjolnir is like a sledgehammer this time around instead of a normal hammer.
Okay.
And so the action is great. I think that's one of the things this series nails. I did look at clips of the anime, and they did not do the action well.
I've heard.
Yeah. But as far as story goes, it's very surface level. Like, there's not too much going on, at least in this first volume. And I hear the praises from other manga tubers, but personally for me, it's not that great. Like, if it was on the Viz Media or Shonen Jump app, I'd just read it that way, but it's not, so I'm gonna get the next 2 volumes and then decide whether or not I want to get rid of it or continue it.
Okay. Okay, so we are at like around the 40-minute mark, so let's kind of speed through a couple of these next ones just so you know the video isn't too long.
Yeah.
Blue Lock, what's your thoughts?
Blue Lock, almost perfect.
Okay.
I think it really shakes up the sports genre, so to speak, with it being very egotistical. And personally, I played soccer during like kindergarten, first grade, so it brings back a lot of memories of me playing that sport.
Nice. To kind of give my own input, because yeah, I don't collect Blue Lock physically anymore. I kind of just read it digitally. Loved it. It is great. Especially like I'm not sure where the anime ends, but just know like it's really good. Especially just it follows that same kind of thing like I said with Hell's Paradise, where all of the characters are so driven in their own ways. Like that's just their ego. That's just how the story is written. That it makes it feel like any one of these characters could have easily been the main character, which I love to see. And Blue Lock does it really well. As well as Isagi is also a really great character to kind of view the story from his point of view. I think he's a really great character. Anything else you want to say for Blue Lock?
The anime ended at, I believe, volume 6, and I would say Kunigami is my favorite character. So if you know what happens, I'm very upset. I'm distraught.
Yeah. I ain't even gonna say nothing. I ain't even gonna say. Okay, understandable. Silent Voice, what you got?
Almost Perfect. I'd put that above Vagabond.
Okay.
So that's a very good slice of life romance. Some people call it a romance. I don't, because it sort of ends in like. So you haven't read or watched A Silent Voice, right?
Very true. I have not.
Okay. Do you mind if I spoil things?
That's fine. Just like like the ending, but if it's something just throughout the story, that's fine.
Yeah. I would just say like stuff leads you down a path, but it doesn't necessarily finish the path, so to speak.
Okay.
But it's very nice. I think you could give this to basically like a middle schooler and they'd be able to enjoy it. I think anyone like middle school, high school should read this. It's great, like anti-bullying, mental health storylines, and it's something I appreciate to look back on. It's certainly like not for me in the moment, but thinking about how I would have appreciated it whenever I was in high school or middle school, I definitely see this like being great for that age range.
Okay. Pancreas, how you feel?
Pancreas I'd put above A Silent Voice.
Okay.
So I like what the mangaka did and what the light novel writer, I forget their name,
Yu Sumino, I believe.
Yeah,
or
but
Yoru
they
Sumino.
basically they did it first person pretty much, where the main character didn't have a name for most of the story. You learn his name towards the end, but it's sort of so you could put yourself on that character, so you can imagine yourself in those scenarios. I kind of wish it was like from a first person point of view, so like you see the character's hands like in front of you. You don't really necessarily see their face. I think that would have leveled up the first person perspective, and maybe you don't learn their name towards the end, but I think it's a wonderful story. I'd say high schoolers and above would appreciate it. I don't really think a middle schooler would, because there's
Definitely
a lot of
not.
deep themes that goes on in it. But if you like romance stories with deep, dark storylines, then I think you'll appreciate this.
Okay, I can agree. I did read it at your recommendation. Really did enjoy the story. Didn't know what to expect, because you were like the first person to ever tell me about it. Outside of like, I want to say the movie. I'm not sure if it's a movie or an anime. I think it's a movie, right?
Yeah, it's a movie.
Yeah, that's like the only other time I've heard about it, kind of just like in passing. But you were like the first person like actually recommended to me. So when I did read it, I didn't know like what to actually expect. Not gonna talk about the ending of it, because I feel like if you read it, that ending hits you hard. And I don't want to spoil that for anybody if they haven't read it yet.
Yeah.
But the story of it, and even though there's only, I would say, really 3 characters that are actually important to the story, all 3 of those characters are like really well written. They're fun, maybe fun might not be the right word to use here actually, but they're very colorful cast, diverse, and they all play off of each other really well. And it's a very, I feel like it's a friend dynamic that almost everybody has had at some point in their life. And especially because the character is told from that first person point of view, I feel like it's very easy to slip yourself into that character. And I think they definitely did a really great job of portraying that. I haven't read the light novel, but I'm sure in the light novel they definitely, did it a lot better, just because of the way, the forms of media are structured between light novel and manga.
Yeah, I haven't read the light novel, but I've only read the manga, so I don't have anything to say about that. And I think the anime is in Netflix jail, unfortunately.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Class of the Elite. I wasn't sure if you had the light novel or the manga for this one.
So I have the manga for this one. I have the first 5 volumes that are put out by 7 Seas. I would put it below Blue Lock and Almost Perfect. And this is mainly from the anime, so to speak, because I've binge watched seasons 1 and 2, and I really enjoyed those despite some stuff that happens in season 2. I'm not going to talk about that. If you know, you know.
Sadly, I don't.
I'll just say a lot of dark stuff happens in season 2 compared to season 1, and the manga changes quite a bit from the anime and the light novels. From what I've heard, the anime is more like the light novels than the manga is. So the manga changes the main character, where he's a lot more reactive in this, so he talks a lot more than the main character, whereas in the anime and the light novels he's sort of closed off. He doesn't really show emotions, where in the manga he does. So I'm still enjoying it. I do prefer the colder version of the main character, but this version's fine as well.
I've only ever seen season 1, and that was back when it first came out, so I really don't remember enough about the series to put any input on it, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, all I know is we're getting season 3 soon, so hopefully they continued this release record, because I know season 2 took a while to come out.
Spy Family, I feel like me and you kind of agree on this one, but what's your thoughts?
So I would put it in mid above Kubo. It's enjoyable mid, so it's very wholesome. For those who don't know, it basically follows a spy who's trying to infiltrate a school and basically connect to the head of the school, and so he has to adopt a daughter or adopt a kid. He ends up adopting a little girl who ends up being telepathic, and then he has to find a mother figure to be able to apply to the school. So he ends up finding a girl who needs a husband, and she ends up being an assassin, and that sort of spins off into a certain direction. It explores themes of adoptive family, which I think is done really well. And it's just a fun, bubbly series that pretty much anyone can enjoy. I know you like darker series, so you're not as much of a fan as this one, but I personally enjoy it. I do think it doesn't need to go on too long. If it gets to the length of Komi, then I'll probably just read it on the Shonen Jump app.
Gotcha. I agree. That's pretty much exactly like the premise of it is really great. I love all of the characters. It's really fun to watch every single, or not watch, but read every single chapter. It's really fun. Not great story, but great characters, as well as the character development is also really good, specifically in Lloyd. But I feel like you said, if it goes on too long, and for me, I think it's 10 volumes out in English now. I personally feel like it's gone on too long already for me, and there's been no real progress made towards the actual plot, which is why I actually dropped the series as of recently. I'm probably gonna read it digital only, but I stopped collecting it physically for that reason. And little side note, I feel like anyone who like skips midway into the video, they're gonna see Spy Family and Kubo above Naruto and be like confused.
Look, they should have watched the beginning of the video, you know? They gotta watch all the way through to hear my really long takes. See, this is why I script my videos, because if I don't, it ends up really long because I just keep rambling. This is why I gotta like keep myself focused.
Gotcha. And honestly, I respect it because scripting videos is something I've like never been good at. And it's something that I'm hoping to try maybe later this year. I do have a topic in mind, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there, honestly.
Definitely.
But I also kind of like suck at deep diving into series. I kind of just give like my initial impressions and leave it at that. But moving on, this is Fly Me to the Moon, right?
Yeah, so I have volume 1. I've watched the first 2 episodes of the anime, and so far I'd put it at the bottom of Almost Perfect.
Okay.
Because to me, it's a really wholesome series, just like Spy Family, whereas this follows a newlywed couple. Thing is, they don't know too much about each other. So in like the first chapter or whatever, the main female saves the main guy from getting run over by a garbage truck, I believe. Basically, Truck-kun came back to kill another isekai character, but they were saved.
Okay.
And so our main character falls in love with what he thinks is an angel, and they end up getting married, but they don't know much about each other. So they have to, learn what each other likes and dislikes, but also learn about the challenges that come along with being newlyweds, because there's so much that comes along with that if you just jump straight in, you have a lot to tackle. And I've heard that the series gets a lot deeper. I know there's some like space stuff going on because the main character's name is NASA, like right after the space company, pretty much. And so there's a lot of stuff going on in the background that I don't know too much, but from volume 1, I think it's a really nice romance. I think it's almost getting to volume 20, so I don't know if that's justified yet, but I'll have to see for myself.
Okay, I haven't read it nor watched the anime. I did hear that the anime was like really good when it came out. I will say that I do love the like volume covers and the aesthetic of the volumes, as well as like the spines, because they're just very colorful. So I will say I do like those. I don't think it's a series that I would ever like actually pick up on my own accord. But it sounds interesting just from like what you briefly told me about, as well as like things I've heard about the anime when it first came out.
Yeah, I know it's on the Viz Media app, so for anyone who has a subscription and that interested you, you can go check that out.
Nice. My Hero Academia, what's your thoughts?
My Hero, I'd put in Almost Perfect. I'd put it above Vagabond.
Okay, yeah. So anyone who like skips in is gonna think this is like blasphemy.
I know. I'm all over the place in terms of like rating these, but I have my reasons. So My Hero Academia, from someone who read comics, is like a great gateway into manga as itself. So I think it's a really good starting point for those who want to get into the medium. And I started off with the anime. I'm caught up with the anime. I've been meaning to catch up with the manga. I just haven't gotten around to it. So this mainly comes from the anime, which to not give spoilers, is basically a Batman arc. That's all I'll say.
Yeah.
But from that, I really enjoy My Hero Academia. Funnily enough, I hate Deku in the anime. He just cries too much for me personally. I think the main character should have been like Todoroki or even Bakugo at this point. And no hate to the voice actor, I know they're just doing their job, but anytime Deku starts tearing up, I gotta fast forward quickly while trying to understand what's going on in that moment.
Okay. I am caught up with the manga of My Hero, like digitally. I'm not gonna say too much because you haven't gotten there yet, and I'd hate to spoil it for you. But it is currently in the war arc still. I'm not sure if it's the same war that the anime is at, because I haven't watched the anime past the overhaul arc. But I think it might be the same war. I could be wrong.
I'll say the name of 2 characters, and you just say yes or no.
Okay.
Twice in the Hawks.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Okay.
So
yes.
for people who know, they know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, the anime
I
is
ain't gonna
caught
say
up
too
to
much,
that point.
but okay.
Mhm.
I feel like, and this kind of like is to piggyback off of what you said with Todoroki should have been the main character. Todoroki gets like this really, and I think this part was in the anime already with Dabi and Endeavor. Not gonna say too much, but it like creates this whole side story for the entire Todoroki family, which I feel like has soloed every story that Deku has had so far, in all honesty. Like I said, not gonna say too much. Whenever you get to that point, whether you read it digitally or, you know, wait for the anime, I'll let you form your own opinion, and if anything, we discuss about it.
I've seen that point. I think it's the best thing we've seen in the anime since the All Might and All for One fight. At least for me personally.
I could agree. I feel like that Todoroki, like the Todoroki family story has just been amazing, even up until like some of the more recent chapters. Like I said, I'm trying to be very vague in what I say because I don't want to spoil it. But whenever you get to it, and yeah, we can discuss it whenever you get around to it.
Yeah, definitely.
Banana Fish, I've actually like never read, like I know literally nothing about this series.
Yeah, so this was recommended to me by my friend who goes by Rugs and Grass on the internet. She's the one who made like my profile pictures and stuff.
Okay.
And she reads a lot of shoujo BL series, so I decided to check it out. I'd put it at the bottom of mid.
Okay.
From volume 1, I do think it's really good. It has a lot of like mafia style storytelling from what I've read so far. And I read it in like March or April of last year, so it's been a while since I've read it, but I was in like a big mafia kick at the time, so I really liked the story and what it set up. There's a big mystery. Not going to give any spoilers for those who haven't read it, but it sets up a big mystery and makes you question a lot of things. I don't think it's on any subscription app, unfortunately. Maybe Viz Media, I'm not sure, but so far I will continue this series when I get around to it. I think it's complete and it's at 16 volumes or something like that. Yeah,
I didn't know it was 16 volumes. For some reason I felt like it was like late 20s, early 30s.
It might be more than that. I know during the World event, whenever everyone was buying up manga and there was a lot of out of stock stuff, volume 16 was super out of stock. Like people were paying like 4 times the price for that volume alone because it was super out of stock.
That reminds me of when like I believe it was Dorohedoro volume 23, whatever the last volume was like impossible to get for like 2 years.
Yeah, now you're finally able to find it.
Right. Moving on, we have Blood on the Tracks. How we feeling?
Top 5, right below Hell's Paradise.
Okay.
So I checked out this series after hearing you talk about it on your channel during your reading logs and hauls, and I was like, this sounds super interesting. So I checked it out. I read volume 1. I finished it in 30 minutes, and I was like, I need volume 2. My sisters gave me volumes 2 and 3 for my birthday. I read both of those. Took me an hour. I need volumes 4 through 6. I ordered them during the last week of the Right Stuff sale. I recently read them. Now I need the next couple of volumes. It leaves me traumatized because it explores like a bunch of mental themes, like stuff with the mom sort of makes you think one thing about her, and there's a lot of, I'm trying to think, gaslighting, I would say, between certain characters. I'm not going to go too much into detail, but there's a lot of touchy themes that not everyone will enjoy, but those who really get into the series will really get into it, and they'll enjoy the series for what it is. This is my first Shuzo Oshimi work, and it makes me want to check out some of their other works after reading this.
I honestly think you should. Honestly, because all of Oshimi's works follow a very similar trend of like a male protagonist in a very like push and pull relationship between two females. That's usually like how Oshimi's stories typically go, and I feel like the psychologist in you would make you just love all of his series. Let me not say all. I use that very like vaguely, because he does have some series, mostly like his earlier works that are now getting printed in English, aren't that good. Off the top of my head, Devil Ecstasy, I think it's called, Sweet Poolside, Avant-Garde Yumiko. Don't worry about those.
Okay.
But his peak ones like Blood on the Tracks, Happiness, Flowers of Evil, I feel like, and Welcome Back Alice. I feel like you would really enjoy all of those.
Yeah, I've been looking at Happiness, but I want to know, like, which one would you suggest for me to start? From me starting off with Blood on the Tracks, which series do you think I would enjoy more out of those?
Okay, I think my own personal bias leads me to say Flowers of Evil, because that's like my top 5. And that was the first Oshimi work I ever read. Also, well, all of them are like relatively the same length, but I feel like Flowers of Evil I would go with. How do you feel about Tokyo Ghoul?
I have not watched it or read it. My sister likes the anime, and she has like volume 1 of the manga, so I might steal that from her so I can read it. And then decide. I think it's on Shonen Jump or Viz,
definitely
one of
is.
those.
I think Shonen Jump, yeah.
Yeah, so I'll probably check it out through that before I decide if I want to get the box set, because if I do end up liking it, I'll definitely go for the box set.
Okay, because reason I ask is because the start of Tokyo Ghoul and the start of Happiness, while not like one for one the same, they do have a lot of parallels with each other. So I was gonna say, if you do like Tokyo Ghoul, I feel like you would like Happiness a lot more than Flowers of Evil. But Happiness, long story short, has like same, or let me not say same, but similar elements to Blood on the Tracks, but has like a more fantasy aspect to it. Whereas Flowers of Evil, instead of it being mom and son, you know, familial, it's more like guy and 2 girls that he has a crush on in his class. So it's kind of like whichever dynamic you find a bit more interesting. Happiness has like vampires and stuff in it.
Okay. Yeah.
Fist of the North Star, how do you feel?
People might call this blasphemous.
Oh gosh.
But I would put it in mid, right in between Naruto and Kubo, just from the first volume. Okay, I want people to get this into their heads. This is off the first, technically 2 volumes, because it's a hardcover.
Okay.
I get that this is the like grandfather of shonen, or the great grandfather, whatever you want to call it at this point, because we're in whatever generation of shonen now.
Very true.
The first half of Fist of the North Star did not hook me, but once he fights a certain person and you see like his backstory and stuff, I'm trying to avoid spoilers for those who want to get into it. But once the main character's backstory is shown, I got more invested into that, and I really got invested into the action. It really reminds me of JoJo's, which JoJo's probably like came from that. But I think it's really good. It gives me more Mad Max vibes than what I was going for. I was hoping for like a Fallout type series, but I do like Mad Max as well. But it didn't really feel what I was looking for.
Okay. I can't really comment on it because I've never read the manga. I have seen the first season of the anime, maybe about like 2, maybe 4 years ago. It was fun, like, because it was like, okay, this is, you know, a really old series, so I kind of like give it a lot of leeway in terms of, you know, the writing and stuff, because it's just a different time. But for what it was it was fun for like what it was. The way the anime is formatted, I don't know how like close it is to the manga or not, but for the anime at least, it has that very like cheesy, you know, hey, this is a weekly anime kind of format.
Definitely.
which was fun to, you know, just watch and turn my brain off to. But I can't really comment on the manga. I've heard, I want to say it was maybe Promji or Dark Sage, one of them. I've heard them talk, you know, really good things about it. I will say the covers look nice, as well as just the stylization where it's just the character with like blood splatter on the cover on a white, you know, background. Looks good, but can't really comment on it at all outside of that.
Yeah.
Shokugeki no Soma or Food Wars. What's your thoughts?
I would put that at, I'd put it above Classroom of the Elite.
Okay.
So this is based off of season 1. So I watched season 1 when it was on Crunchyroll before they removed it for whatever reason. Now they only have like seasons 3 through 5, so I can't continue it. So I decided to go with the manga. Yeah.
Continue, sorry.
So you're good. I decided to go with the manga, and it's more entertaining than the anime for me personally, because I love to cook. I'm pretty much an amateur chef. So I love seeing what they learn in the process, and I liked, am I allowed to spoil the ending of season 1?
Should be fine.
I mean, it's been out since like 2016.
Should be fine by now.
So if you haven't seen it, basically he loses in the tournament of the first season, and like I had not seen that at the time, and so it was very different from like, you'd think during the tournament, oh, the main character is gonna win,
always has to win, yeah.
Whereas this time he lost to the spice guy, I forget his name, and so that was like a nice shakeup. And then I was going to continue it, but I never got around to watching season 2, and now I can't. So now I have to go through the manga, and I can't find it at any stores, so I'm probably gonna have to order the rest online.
Jeez. Okay. I've only ever seen season 1, and that was when it first came out. I thought it was a really cool series, very unique. Not much anime are like about cooking. I myself am not very much of a chef, I will say that. But it was fun to watch. It was definitely a different take on a battle shonen, so to say. Very fun story. Can't complain about it. I can't really speak too much on it either, because it was a good amount of time ago.
Yeah, I do like how in the manga they include recipes for the actual food they make in the manga. And I actually want to do a video where I try to make the food following the recipes and completely butcher those recipes. But I'd get some entertainment out of it, at least trying to do like a binging with Babish type show.
Okay, I think that would actually be pretty cool to watch.
Yeah.
Goblin Slayer, how do you feel?
Okay. Put it above Box of Light. I feel like I'm going to go to court for this one. I need Phoenix Wright to defend me for this, because a lot of people are going to look at me. This does not reflect on me as a person. I totally get why people don't like it. Oh gosh. I totally get why people don't like it. Trust me. I don't like those elements too. But I like the magic system in it, and it's basically like a D&D game. So the idea is there are gods in this world, and they roll the dice. And so it's basically the characters in that world are actually like players in the real world. And so I like the magic system because it's basically a hard magic system where they can only use a certain amount of spells. And say like in Elden Ring or whatever, whenever you go to fight the boss, if you have like an OP magic build, you could just like spam those magic spells as much as you want. Whereas in Goblin Slayer, you can't really do that. I think they can use up to 5 spells, so you have to use it sparingly. And so the main character, Goblin Slayer, has to try to find a way to use the stuff he has in the moment. And I think Year 1 does this a lot better, because at that point he's just by himself. You're seeing him just get started on his journey. And there's a really cool moment in Volume 3 where this isn't like a big spoiler or anything. He's defending a village. There's no dialogue in this moment. It's raining, and you just hear him counting. He goes 1, 2, 3, and that counting is for every time he gets rid of a goblin.
Okay.
And
That
so
sounds fire. I'm not gonna lie.
it was a really cool moment. I get
Okay.
why people don't like it. I think that could have been handled better, definitely. But it does have certain aspects that I like. I hear
Okay.
that the light novel is way worse than the
Oh,
manga,
gosh.
which I will not be going to the light novel. I've had my fill with this series. I remember I first experienced it through Etika, because whenever he did his anime reactions back in like 2017, he reacted to the first 2 episodes of Goblin Slayer live, and that was traumatizing as like a 16-year-old. And then I was like, there's no way the manga is just as bad. No, it's worse.
Oh, golly. Okay.
Mhm. So I get why people don't like it. There's certain aspects I like. So, you know, read it at your own risk. Research it before you go into it. That's all I'm gonna say.
Okay. JoJo's, how do you feel?
I would put that above Kubo.
Okay.
This is based off of Part 1, Volume 1, so I only have the
Okay.
first volume of JoJo's. And just like Fist of the North Star, it's very old, so I do give it a lot of leeway. I do like Dio. He is my personal favorite character
Yep.
in Part 1. I do not like Jonathan. I just find it would be annoying. So anytime Dio does something to mess with Jonathan, I'm just like, you go, Dio. Unless it's like, okay, I'm going to try to avoid this for YouTube, but I will say Dog and Furnace.
Okay.
People know what I'm talking about. That at that point, I was like, you went too far.
Yeah,
You
Dio
went too
dragged
far.
it. Dio dragged it.
Mhm. But like, whenever he planned to like get the Joestar fortune, I was like, you go, man. You had a bad father. You try to do whatever you can to get that bread, you know. And so I'm enjoying it so far, mainly just for Dio. Jonathan
Okay.
has yet to grow on me. I do hear that I believe it's Joseph
Yeah,
who's the
Joseph.
protagonist of Part 2. I hear he's a lot better
Definitely
than Jonathan.
is.
So I really just need to get through the next 2 volumes and just start Part 2.
I agree. I feel like Part 1, because let me not say I'm caught up with JoJo's, but I've finished all the way up to Part 7. And it literally, is this accurate to say? Just about, like, every part is better than the previous. And I feel like Part 1, usually a lot of people tend to drop JoJo's at Part 1 just because of like Jonathan is not a great character at all. In you know, this day and age of reading a story, Jonathan doesn't drive the story forward. He's not interesting. He's just heroic, generic, bland character.
Yeah, he could be better.
100%. Joseph, on the other hand, I'm not gonna spoil anything, but he's like, especially going from like Jonathan to Joseph, it makes Joseph look like a god tier character. But even like excluding Jonathan from the equation and, you know, the comparison of that, I feel like Joseph on his own is a very great character, just standalone. Like I said, not gonna talk too much about it because I want you to be able to enjoy it whenever you get to it. And then, yeah, as usual, me and you could always just talk about it whenever you get there.
Oh yeah, I'm sure I'm gonna be like having some live reactions, either like hating it or completely loving it, because I've heard from like Trash Taste that people either love Part 2 or they hate Part 2.
Okay.
And that's like the point where they either jump off or continue JoJo's. So we'll see how I do with Part 2. But for right now, I am enjoying JoJo's and I will continue it.
Okay. JJK, how do we feel?
So I would put this at the top of almost perfect. So I have watched all of season 1. I've started watching season 2 with my youngest sister because that's like our thing, is to watch Jujutsu Kaisen because she's into it. I have volumes 1 through 19 of the physical manga. I'm currently reading volume 8. So I'm pretty much like at where season 1 ended. So in terms of season 1, I think it's a great setup. I have a lot of issues with Chainsaw Man in terms of its speed. That's one of the things I complained about, is I thought Chainsaw Man was too fast paced, whereas
Mhm.
Jujutsu Kaisen is very fast paced, but it still fleshes out its characters. Chainsaw Man didn't really do that. Like, I'm gonna avoid spoilers. Characters just go too quickly.
Yes.
That's what I will say. They didn't really have their time to shine, and stuff didn't really have time to really set in for certain characters. I'm trying to dance around this so that the anime
Got you.
onlys don't get spoiled, because I think the anime is only up to Katana Man at this point.
Yes.
So I think season 1 does that a lot better, because you see these really small moments between the characters where they're able to flesh out, and it's still fast paced, so you don't lose your attention. And especially with someone who gets distracted very easily, I really appreciate that for this series.
Okay. Yeah, I think because JJK, I watched the first season and then read everything afterwards. I pretty much agree with you on what you said. Yeah, I think the pacing of it it's fast enough to where you don't lose interest, but it's not too fast to where like everything is a blur either.
Exactly.
I think it's paced very correctly, and especially like it is filled with a lot of fight scenes, and I feel like that's definitely their strong point. I will say, what arc is gonna come up? The Shibuya incident. Not gonna say too much because I know you haven't gotten there yet.
So Shibuya arc hasn't been adapted in the anime yet, and I'm not sure what that is. And the manga, I know it's supposed to be adapted at the end of August, so it's pretty it's coming up for me personally. I think I'll get into it at like volume 12 or something like that. I'm not sure, because like I said, I'm at volume 8, and they just started wrapping up season 1. So it depends on how long the beginning of the first arc of season 2 takes to get through the manga. Again, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm not gonna say anything to spoil that then.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just not gonna say anything at all because I don't want to risk spoiling it. Kaguya-sama Love is War. Thoughts?
I would put this above Komi. Just like Komi, it was a slog to get through, but towards the end, I started to get into it. It's very episodic in nature. I don't know why I didn't get into it, because I think the dynamic between both characters is very interesting. I just think maybe it's too episodic for me personally. Like the small details between each character, like the small things, like in the first volume, they're trying to get the other person to go to a movie. And they aren't able to trick each other, so they end up sitting apart. Like that's an okay story, but I'm personally like, I want it to progress a bit further than that. And it's just going too slow for me personally. I think it's okay. If I don't enjoy the next 2 volumes, then I'll probably go anime only for it.
For Kaguya, I have like only seen the anime. I think I've only seen like the first 2 seasons and maybe like the first couple episodes in the 3rd season. I think there's 3 seasons. I could be wrong. I feel like I've seen a good amount of it. Yeah. Okay. It's very episodic indeed. I'm not personally the biggest fan of episodic stories. I like just one big cohesive story. And the first 2 seasons, I'm not sure how much volumes that covers, but it is like it has that same Spy Family problem where it just feels like characters are just running around in circles. Like, it's fun to watch, but there's no actual development towards the plot. Like I said, I have not finished season 3, but I heard that towards the end of season 3 it starts making some progress. And to what I understand, I'm not gonna say what happens towards the end of season 3, but it does, like, something happens that does kind of incite the characters to actually start making progress.
So things actually start moving forward at season 3 is what you're telling me.
Yeah, so those next 2 volumes, I don't think you're going to get lucky there.
Oh man. It looks like I'm going to be anime only for that
understandable
series.
And the anime is really good. The voice acting, I watched it in sub. The voice acting is really good, and I feel like a lot of the jokes hit really well. even though I did watch it in sub, just because the movement of the characters and stuff like that. But also, to be fair, I haven't even like opened a page of the manga to compare it to.
Yeah. I feel like I'll like the anime, but the manga probably not.
Okay, probably.
Yeah.
Kaiji, just for reference, I've seen the anime. Okay. Oh wait, I didn't even make a category for haven't read.
Yeah, this is the only haven't read in my collection. And that's because I bought it during the Right Stuff sale the first week. I got volumes 1 through 4 because they were like $15 each. They're normally $22 and some change. So I was like, I'll get it, and if I don't like it, then I'll sell it off. And so I just got it because of that. I hear it's really good despite like how the art might look. But to me, art is basically second to story. Like if a series has a really good story, then I don't mind if the artwork isn't as good. Like, what's a series I can name off the top of my head? I'd actually say that about Rascals. So like the story of Rascals is really good. The artwork is okay compared to like other series in my top 5. Like I think Shuzo Oshimi does better artwork. I think Yuji Kaku does better artwork.
Definitely.
I think Makoto Yukimura does better artwork. So I think the artwork isn't as good in that, but it still has a great story to where the artwork doesn't really matter for me personally.
Now, I will say I've like never read the Kaiji manga. I have seen the anime. The anime has 2 seasons of it. I will say if you do ever like plan on watching the anime, I think the first season for some reason only comes in 360p quality. Like there's no HD version of season 1 to my knowledge. But and I'm not sure how accurate the anime is to the manga because I feel like the anime might have changed around some things, but I could be wrong. Just going off of the anime though, it is an amazing story. And it's funny because around the time I watched Kaiji, I like kind of just got into like actually collecting manga, and I read Kekai Gurui. I'm not sure if you're familiar. It's the series with Jabami Yumiko, also a gambling series.
I'm not familiar with that series.
I feel like if I showed you a picture of Yumiko, you would know who she is. She's like the girl that makes the very obscure faces because she's gambling. If anything, we'll talk about that at a later note. But
yeah,
I read that and I was like, man, this is such a great like gambling series. And then I watched Kaiji and then I was like, nah, I gotta get rid of this. This series is like not good at all for what it's supposed to be doing. But yeah, Kaiji, like I said, I haven't read the manga, but if the anime is anything close to it, I can guarantee you will enjoy it, like the manga for it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I've heard nothing but praise from other manga tubers about the series.
Yeah, it's great. Like I said, only going off of the anime, but it is great. I would collect the manga, but for some reason I thought only the first omnibus had been out for like years. Like I didn't even know there was a second and third omnibus out until pretty recently.
Well, I think that was the case because Denpa prints the series, and so it releases very slowly. I think we're getting volume 5 in November or something like that. I think now they've increased it to like 1 volume a year, which is pretty slow in terms of manga.
Yeah.
But I don't know what Denpa is like since this is my first Denpa series, so I don't know if that's like the norm for them or if they're even slower than that. But from what I've heard, it's had a pretty slow printing schedule.
Off the top of my head, I don't think I really have a Denpa series off the top of my head, but moving on, Kaiju number 8.
I put it in between Kubo and JoJo's, and it's nice. It's one of the One Punch Man babies, as the Dark Sage called it. I definitely see it in the humor. I like that it has an older protagonist. I feel like the hype around the actual collecting community has somewhat died for this series, because I know Manga Sloth said whenever he picked up the most recent volume, which I believe is volume 7, he said that if it continues like that he's gonna drop the series. I know some other people have been going digital only. I'm still collecting it because I'm still having fun with it. I think it's enjoyable for what it is. It's pretty much like Attack on Titan meets One Punch Man for anyone who doesn't know what the series is like. And I know the anime, I believe it's coming out next year, and I saw some of the artwork for it. It doesn't look as good as the manga, at least in my opinion. But yeah, it's enjoyable for what it is.
Funny enough, because I do actually like have a video talking about the first volume of it. I'll probably put a card up for that if I remember. But when I first read the series, it was like magic. I'm not gonna lie. I really enjoyed it, and it was one of those series that before the physical came out, I was like, man, I hope Shonen Jump doesn't cancel. Like, I saw so much potential in it, and I'm probably like maybe 5 or 6 chapters behind digitally. Not gonna talk too in depth on what's going on with the manga, but I think it's still a really great story, and I feel like it's probably gonna be coming to an end very soon, just the way that the story is going in digitally so far, which is perfectly fine. I'm perfectly fine with a story that doesn't overstay its welcome, and I'm hoping Kaiju number 8 doesn't overstay its welcome. And I do agree with you. I have noticed that like Kaiju number 8 has kind of like fallen off as a topic as of recently. I'm not exactly sure why, if I'm being honest, but I have noticed that as well.
I feel like it was just the hottest thing at the time. Like, that was what the manga collecting community was hyping up at the time. Like, nowadays it's Dawn to Dawn, which I have not read that at all. And before that, I feel like it was Summertime Rendering. And so I actually want to get Summertime Rendering and do a video and see if it was just hype or if this series is actually good. I know I believe you got it from a subscriber.
Yes.
The whole series.
Yes.
Have you read Summertime Rendering?
I've seen all of the anime, and I've read the first volume of the manga, and it's like 1 for 1. The anime and manga so far are like 1 for 1. I know my brother has read all of the manga and seen all of the anime, and he also told me that it's like 1 for 1. The anime is great. The voice acting, I did watch it in dubbed. The voice acting for Mio, the Shinpei, the main character's younger sister, her voice acting in dub isn't really that good to me. But the openings are great, soundtrack great, story, characters are, it's honestly a really like 8 out of 10 series in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm interested to check it out for myself and develop my own opinions, because I'm not sure what streaming service the anime is on.
I want to say I watched it on Hulu, I believe. Yeah, I want to say it was on Hulu. I think you'd actually really enjoy it. Have you ever seen Erased?
My sister has. She talks high praise about that series. I've debated whether to get the physicals or not. I know it comes in like those really big and
it's like complete
overpriced
white
hardcovers.
I'm also not a fan of I'm not a fan of Kei Sanbei's art. That's, you know, the mangaka for it. I'm not the biggest fan of their art, but the anime for Erased was really good.
Yeah, I'll definitely have to check out both series.
Okay, I would honestly, I'm curious to hear like what your thoughts on Summertime Rendering would be. I feel like there's a lot of characters you could do like a psychoanalysis for and like deep dive into those characters. So I'm curious on what your thoughts for those would be.
Yeah, if I do collect it, then I'll definitely do a video on it probably.
Orange, how do you feel?
Top of almost perfect for me personally. So I know you've been collecting the physicals for it. Have you read volume 2? I know you said
I have not. I picked it up.
Right.
I just haven't read it yet.
All right, so avoiding spoilers for volume 2, the basic premise is our main character Naho receives a letter from herself 10 years in the future, and it asks her to help stop a regret she has in the future, and to help a classmate who shows up, who's a new transfer student. And so we get to see a lot of friendships and relationship dynamics, not just between those two characters, but also the rest of her friend group, because there's Suwa, Hagita, and I forget the names of the two girls. But we get to see their relationships also blossom, and it deals with heavy topics in a really wonderful way. I feel like this was the best way that those topics have been handled in a series so far, at least from what I've read. It's definitely way better than Box of Light. I would say it's on par with I Want to Eat Your Pancreas and A Silent Voice in terms of that. I haven't read To You, Dear One. I have read Future. I feel like Future was unneeded because it basically gives more context as to Suwa's perspective during the main story. So if we separated that from like the main story, I'd put that in mid because it just felt unnecessary. So I would say skip Future and just get To You, Dear One. I haven't read that, but from what I know, it gives more context as to what happened to the other characters after the events of the main story.
I was actually gonna ask you, like, while we were on the topic, like, because I feel like I mentioned this in all the videos regarding Orange. Like, I'll ask like what other stuff are there apart from the first two omnis, but okay, so you said don't read Future, just get To You, Dear One. Okay. Yeah. I will keep that in mind. I'll take your word for it. Attack on Titan. What's your thoughts?
Top of A tier. So, or top of almost perfect.
Got you.
Basically A tier. But I've binge watched all of the anime that's out so far with my youngest sister. She introduced me to the series, and I really liked the anime, despite some stuff that's explored in seasons 2 and 3, and I don't like season 4. It personally gets, so I like to overanalyze series, but for me, Attack on Titan feels like the series where I just want to see like big monsters fight with no like repercussions. It's very weird, but like season 4 starts to get too big brain for me, and I would say like the stuff with Historia I didn't like in season 3. I personally like the stuff with Zeke and Levi and Reiner and Bertolt. I felt like that was the best part of season 3. That's probably my favorite part overall of Attack on Titan. Season 1 was really good. I enjoyed all of that. Season 2, I didn't like the stuff with, what's her name? Ymir, or not. Was it season 2 where they got into Ymir Fritz? I forget.
I'm not gonna lie,
the backstory,
it's really hard to keep up when it's like season 2 part 1 and 2. It's like really hard for me to keep up.
But basically the stuff with like Ymir Fritz and all that gets too big brain for me. But overall, I do enjoy the series, and I have heard about the ending, and for me, an ending does not make the series. It's more so the journey than the destination for me personally. So when I do get to the ending, I will decide how I feel about it. But from what I've heard, I personally don't hate it.
I have watched up until, I want to say, season, how does it go, the final season part 1. I think that's all I've seen, and then I just read the rest of it. I will say I feel like the ending isn't as bad as everyone like blows it out of proportion to be. Now there was I think maybe a week or two after the ending, there was like a second ending that came out. I'm not sure if you heard about it. Now that second ending was awful, I will say that much. Without giving too much spoilers, the first ending ended off the story, and that was that, that was it. The second ending was like opened up gateway for another sequel, like an Attack on Titan Shippuden. That's what the second ending did, and I feel like the story itself was already perfect from start to finish.
You're worrying me.
Yeah, I ain't gonna say too much, and this could be wrong, but I've heard rumors of Mappa doing anime original ending, but I'm not 100% sure on that. I don't know if they're gonna go with that, the first ending or the second ending, but hopefully it's a good ending.
Please don't do that, Matt. But you already overwork your workers. We don't need them to overwork on something that's not
Right.
good.
Right. I agree. What's next here? Solo Leveling.
So,
What's your thoughts?
all right, so I have volume 1. I would put that, honestly, I'd put it below Banana Fish. I feel like the hype for it comes from the webtoon, or I believe it's a webtoon.
Yeah.
And just from the beginning, I do like the dungeon area that they face, like the monsters in that, but the actual concept of the character learning he's in a video game and stuff doesn't really interest me. It just feels like another isekai that's not really an isekai in a way. I hear it does get better the further along it goes. I know we're getting an anime, but I'm not sure where the manhwa stopped. I know the artist for the manhwa unfortunately passed away, so I'm not sure if they've like halted the series completely or if they're like taking a break during that.
I actually did not know that. I only knew that there was a light novel, and I assume the light novels then get adapted into the webtoon. But
yeah, I heard CBR report it, so it may not be true because CBR gets a bunch of stuff wrong. But if it is true, then it's unfortunate that we lost a talented person.
I agree. Personally, I haven't read Solo Leveling. Like, I know absolutely nothing about it except that it's like, I guess, fantasy in a video game style world. That's like the only thing I know about it. Heard a lot of good things about it. I know there's a lot of hype for the anime. I know the manhwa, I believe it's called, sells really well. But outside of that, I know literally nothing about it. People tell me all the time, hey, you should check it out, but this is a very like minuscule thing. But manhwas, or fully colored series, are typically a lot heavier, and I know this is like the second time I mentioned it in this video, but the way that I hold books and like the way my fingers are designed, heavy books do not work with me, and so it plays a part into why I don't read it. Like I said, very minuscule thing to a lot of people. I guarantee a lot of people think I'm like making excuses, but that's just kind of how my hands are.
Yeah, I mean, it's like double the weight of a normal manga, and it's like about the size of a Blue Lock volume, so about the size of a Kodansha manga. But it does get heavy eventually. That's why I like rest it down whenever I'm reading it.
Okay, that's something I never do when I read. Like, put the book down or like rest it down to read. That's something I never do. I'm usually like, kind of like you said earlier, I'm usually like sitting up in bed reading the book. But yeah, that's pretty much why I haven't read that or any other manhwa. I've heard a lot of good things about this one called I think it's called like Fight Club 3 or something like that. I don't exactly remember.
I've heard of it.
Yeah, I've heard good things about that one. I'll probably like, I don't know if there's like a site where I could just read manhwa. I'll probably research that afterwards, or if you've gotten this far into the video, just kind of comment that down,
Yeah, I think Webtoons has its own app or whatever, but I'm not sure if they have a subscription service like like Viz. So I'm not sure.
Moving on, quintuplets. How do you feel?
Rent-A-Girlfriend tier. I hear people getting upset. I hear all the complaints. I hear the typing keys right now. I hated reading this.
Golly.
Oh gosh. Okay, so I don't like narcissistic characters.
Okay.
And that's pretty much all the main character is. Like, I get, he's not well off, he has to do tutoring to help his family and stuff. But when he's that stuck up, I just don't care about him. And I found all the girls to be annoying as well. Okay. Just in this first volume, they haven't really shown like who they actually are, so there may be some development in the second and third volumes, but from first impressions, I did not like this manga. I might go anime only, I'm not sure, but as far as the manga goes, if I don't like the next 2 volumes, I'm dropping it and just giving it to my local library.
Okay. I haven't read the manga. I've seen the first 2 seasons of it. To my memory, I kind of enjoyed it. I thought the characters were a little fun to watch. But I could see what you're getting at. I could see what you're getting at. Yeah, okay. Shield Hero, how do you feel?
Shield Hero, I'd put at the top of mid. So I know some people would be upset about that, but this is the second isekai I ever watched. The first was Sword Art Online, which we know how that went. We aren't gonna continue about that. But I watched Shield Hero, and I thought it was really interesting with the first season. I watched it dubbed, so it was Billy Kometz who voiced the main character. I believe they voiced Josuke and JoJo's.
Okay.
Unfortunately, they passed away, so they couldn't do season 2. So they got someone else, and they started using CGI for season 2. I think they used it in season 1, but it wasn't as bad as season 2. And so I was like, all right, I'll go to the manga. But basically, season 1, it has some tropes that I don't like that go along with isekai, especially if you know like the backstory of how he teamed up with Raphtalia. I'll just say that I did not like that. I felt like, hey, he could have like saved her during one of the wave attacks, and that could have been the jumping point, not the means he had to go to get a teammate, basically. So I feel like that could have been handled differently. There's certain characters that I don't like, but I do enjoy it for the most part. And this is the only manga and anime that, this is a small spoiler for season 1, not really, but this is the only manga and anime that I've seen where the Pope is a villain. They fight the Pope, and he uses the power of the prayers of his followers to charge up his like blast or whatever that he uses to fight the main character. And I've never seen that. It's so ridiculous yet so funny, and it's just great for that scene alone.
Okay. Let's see. Honestly, because I've seen season 1 of Shield Hero, and I read the manga like way before the anime came out. It was really enjoyable, I will say that. But I think the further I got into the manga, the less I liked it, because I feel like it just, the way the story is written, it makes literally all the other heroes outside of the Shield Hero, Naofumi, I think his name was, all of the other heroes just seem like garbage and very incompetent characters, which I didn't like, because if they're supposed to be force selected people. I understand, Naofumi getting the shield, he's supposed to be looked down on. I get that, it's his redemption story, understandable. But I feel like the other 3 hero characters are just bad for the sake of being bad. Especially, I want to say it was the spear hero. Like, the spear hero is just the worst one. But it was honestly, like, to my memory, I did enjoy the series. I can say that very confidently.
I feel like a part of that has to do with the light novel. So the writer of the light novel basically got greenlit for another series, and so they actually tried to rush to finish Shield Hero as quickly as they could, and in doing so they like murdered a bunch of darlings and threw out the baby with the bathwater, so to speak. And so they ended up rushing and lost a lot of stuff. I know the Spear Hero actually has his own series. It's called like the Reprise of the Spear Hero. I haven't checked it out. I don't know what it's like. I haven't seen anyone else pick it up, but I do know that he has his own series, so he may be redeemed in that, but I personally don't know.
I don't know if I'm ever gonna check it out, if I'm being 100% honest with you.
Yeah, just stick with the anime.
Yeah, I think I'm not sure if this was in season 2 or end of season 1, but there was like another character introduced. I'm not gonna say too much on it because I really don't remember which season it was, and I don't want to spoil anything. But there was a brand new character introduced, or I want to say 2 characters that were very interesting and cool.
I think I might know who you're talking about. If I say Scythe and Gems,
sounds familiar. And they were like on a ship of some sort, I think.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Red hair, blue hair.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
I know who you're talking about.
Okay.
Yeah. They're introduced in season 1, but things really pick up in season 2. If you can get over the CGI of the turtle, which it was hard for me to do it whenever I watched it, but it does actually get a lot darker than season 1. I still think that season 1's better than season 2, but it does explore some interesting concepts.
Okay. Moving on here. So Solanin, how do you feel about it?
I put it above Attack on Titan.
Okay.
This is my first Inio Asano manga and the only one I've read so far, but it just really connected with me as someone who is a young adult and someone who is/was in a similar situation to the main character. I just really felt connected to the character and what they were going through. And I love music. I love all kinds of music, but I especially love alternative and like punk music. So seeing the main characters like play bass, electric, and drums and like perform music, that was a lot of fun for me personally, because anytime I read something that has to do with music, I'll often turn on my own music, so I can kind of imagine them playing that song in that world, so I feel even more connected. Unless like the series has a specific soundtrack, like I can't play punk or whatever while watching Blue Giant or reading Blue Giant.
Okay, yeah,
you know, that doesn't really fit it.
Okay. Do you mind if I ask real quick, do you have like a favorite band as of recently?
As far as bands go, I don't really have a band in mind, but as far as like musicians, I would say 93 Feet of Smoke. I don't know if you've heard of them.
I have not, but that is a really cool name.
Yeah, I would say a lot of their older stuff isn't good, but a lot of their recent stuff, they've definitely evolved as a musician. So I'd say check out Alien and their latest album called Alter. I think that's a good start.
Okay. As far as Solanin goes, I could pretty much agree with you. Like word for word. Especially like at the time I read it, it was like perfect for me at the time, and I'm also very into punk, specifically rock. That's very much my genre. And Solanin, just the main character, and not gonna spoil what happens, you know, midway through the book for anyone who hasn't read it yet, but when the main character kind of got that inspiration, or not inspiration, but more so motivation to start progressing their life forward, it really like hit me hard. And I think like, a lot of Asano's works are like that, and I love Asano's works, honestly.
Yeah, when you get that, when she gets that motivation point, when events happen, that's like when you play Numb by X Tentacion. That's like the perfect time for that to kick in.
I agree. It's a beautiful story. Also, seeing as you said that's the only Asano work you've read, I assume you haven't read Goodnight Pun Pun, but
no, that's on my TBR
list. Highly recommend.
Yeah, like they have volumes 2 through 4 at my local Books A Million, but they don't have volume 1. They haven't had it for like a year now at this point. So I just need to order it online at this point.
Yeah, it's Pun Pun is great. Another one I would recommend, like would not, is Downfall. Downfall has like a lot of sensitive topics, but I enjoyed it personally. A lot of other people didn't enjoy it. That was actually the first Asano work I ever read. I enjoyed it. I can't promise that you'll enjoy it if I'm being honest, but I would recommend it.
Yeah, that's one that I've wanted to check out because I believe it's about a mangaka and like
Yes.
their story. So I'm interested to see how Ennio Asano talks about that, especially like I want to get into Bakuman as well. So I
Ooh,
feel like,
Bakuman's good.
yeah, I feel like reading those two at the same time would be a good time for me personally.
Okay. I think, yeah, I think Bakuman you can definitely enjoy. That's a phenomenal story with a really fun and vibrant cast of characters. Moving on to the next, second to last here, we do have One Punch Man. What's your thoughts?
I'd put it in between Hell's Paradise and Blood on the Tracks. So
Okay.
One Punch Man was the first anime that really got me into the medium. It was the one I watched after Sword Art Online. So I started Sword Art Online because Film Theory had made a video on it, and I was like, oh, that concept sounds cool. And then certain stuff with elves happened, and I dropped it.
Yep.
And then they did a Film Theory on One Punch Man. I was like, okay, that looks cool. But then I saw a clip of Saitama punching the Deep Sea King, and I was like,
Yeah.
oh, I gotta check this out. Especially because it played like this stuff with Moomin Rider, and I was more so interested in Moomin Rider than Saitama. Like, Saitama was cool, but seeing Moomin Rider do his stuff in that really motivated me because I was like, that's an interesting character. And so I checked it out. I loved all of season 1. I haven't seen season 2 because I had a Funimation subscription whenever I watched it, and they didn't have season 2 because I think that's in Netflix jail or something.
Okay.
So I haven't seen season 2, and I've read up to volume 7 of the manga. I have not started anything after that because I've been collecting the physicals, but a part of me just wants to read it on the Shonen Jump app and just blaze through it because I feel like that'd be a very easy read for me. But then once I get to the end of it, I'm going to be like, man, I have to wait for the next chapter. That's how I am with Vinland Saga right now. Like, I'm glad that I read all of Vinland Saga, but at the same time, I'm like, man, now I have to wait like 2 years for the next volume.
Okay, understandable. I'm pretty much caught up on One Punch Man digitally. Phenomenal series. Yusuke Murata's art is great. The story is great. And I think my favorite part of One Punch Man is that even though Saitama's the main character and the story revolves around him, all of the other side characters are amazing. And I think like every other character is the main character at times. They just don't win the fight. That's Saitama's job. Like, Saitama is just there to win fights, but everybody else is there to make the story interesting and progress the plot forward. And it's funny because when I first heard of the concept of One Punch Man, where it was literally just a guy who's super strong and beats every enemy with one punch, I was like, this is boring. There's no way this is a good series. Then when I watched it, I was like, this is amazing. And then the manga, is great, especially after they, I'm not gonna say too much because you said you've seen like season 1 and the first 7 volumes, so I'm pretty sure you've heard about the antagonist in season 2.
Garo.
Yeah, once he's introduced, it's up from there.
I've seen some panels, and it looks hype, but I'm like, man, I wish that wasn't spoiled for me, because like, I try to dodge spoilers for any series like Neo from the Matrix, especially when it comes to One Punch Man, but I just got caught with strays with that.
Understandable. I ain't gonna say too much, but just know every volume is literally a banger. But for some reason in English, the release schedule for it is like very slow in English.
I don't know why that is.
I'm not sure why.
Yeah, I feel like they try to push it out quickly. I'm not sure. Maybe they're waiting for like season 3 to be announced, and that's when they'll start pushing it out whenever it has an anime to sort of push sales. But I feel like One Punch Man is a series that doesn't really need that. Maybe it sort of lost some favor with season 2. I'm not sure, but I heard it wasn't as good. But personally, I feel like One Punch Man deserves the Viz Big treatment out of any Viz Media series. That'd be the one that I want to see in Viz Big. What would you like to see in the Viz Big format if it was comfortable for you to read?
That's actually a very good question. I would honestly just kind of off the top of my head, One Punch Man is definitely a good series. I think I would like to see Bleach in a Viz Big format. I feel like, especially the way they do Viz Big spines, I would just love to see the Bleach characters just kind of lined up there. I think that would make for a really cool spine lineup on a shelf, you know?
Yeah, that would be cool. I haven't watched or read Bleach.
Okay.
But I do plan on collecting the 3-in-1s for that, and I do like Type Kubo's art style, so I think that would look good on a spine.
I think my final answer would be Bleach. Definitely.
Okay.
Okay. Moving on to the very last one here, we have Dr. Stone. What's your thoughts?
Okay. I feel like I have too many and almost perfect, but I'd put it in between Blue Lock and Food Wars.
Okay.
Because I've watched the first 2 seasons of the anime and I've watched the movie, and I really enjoyed that. I think the manga is great for what it is. Actually, move it down to mid. I'd put it at the top of mid because I think the anime is the better way to consume the series than the manga.
Okay.
I don't know, that's probably not a unique opinion, but I feel like the manga is great for what it is, but the anime really adds a lot to the series. I haven't watched season 3 yet because I don't really watch as much anime as I used to, so I haven't caught up with that. I think the only thing I'm watching right now is JJK, so I do need to watch season 3. But I think the manga is great as well, and I know it just ended physical wise, and I feel like if another series were to get a box set announcement, it would be Dr. Stone with how well this series has done.
I think on that topic of box sets, it's one of those series I felt like would definitely get a box set like that, as well as Promised Neverland. I'm not sure if that got announced or if that's a real thing yet.
That's a real thing. It comes out in October, and I plan to get that because I got rid of I own volume 1 and 2, and I decided to get rid of it because I want to get the box set, even though I wasn't a fan of the latter half of the series. I still think it's good enough for me to get the series.
I think Dr. Stone definitely deserves a box set. I haven't seen any of the anime. I've only ever read the manga. The art in the manga, phenomenal. Boichi did their thing with that manga. It's a series though that I will say I feel like I do love science, so that kind of gives me a bit of bias towards the manga. But I feel like after the first major antagonist, I feel like the story kind of didn't really. It wasn't my thing after that, if I'm being honest. But the cast
Sukazo was great.
Yeah, Tsukasa, he's a great character, definitely. I'm not sure if there was anybody in between him and the next major antagonist, but it's still a really great series. Like I said, I do love science, as well as just watching Senku literally just pull tricks out of his hat every time. Solving problems that you wouldn't even think about on a day-to-day basis, literally building a world out of nothing, is very impressive. The characters are kind of tropey in what they do. They do become very predictable as the story goes on, because they're meant to fill a very specific character trait, and I think they do a good job with that. Nothing's wrong with that. I feel like all the characters kind of play off of each other really well. But it's a very okay series to me. I could agree with you here. I would definitely put it somewhere in the mid category. Nothing's wrong with that. It's a perfectly fine series, just not almost perfect and not top 5,
Yeah, I definitely put the anime in top 20 for me personally, but definitely not top 10 or top 5.
Yeah.
But I think it's great for all ages because, like, I know some people that like teach middle school, they'll show it to like their science class as like a way to teach a certain subject, and that's like a great way. So like if you want your kid to learn a certain thing, you can give them Dr. Stone, and it's one, it's entertaining, but you also learn some stuff. Stuff may not be totally accurate, but some stuff is, I believe.
Yeah.
Again, I'm more of a history guy, which is why I probably like Vinland Saga and Vagabond a lot, but science was also my thing.
Okay. Kind of just on that brief note of like school subjects, history was like my least favorite subject every time. History, geography, anything of that sort, never liked it. But anything you want to say like real quick before we end off the video here?
I will say that this isn't my entire collection because I do own 2 series digitally, and that is It's in Harem and Ladies on Top. And I own those digitally because I still live with my parents, and I do not need my mom walking in and seeing Akane from Worlds in Harem, because that's just too much. That would give her a heart attack if she saw it. But Worlds in Harem would be almost perfect, and Ladies on Top would be mid.
Okay.
Yeah.
Respectable. Okay. That is pretty much it for the video. Thank you all so much for watching. Let's give a quick shout out to our channel members. Thank you all so much for the support. I greatly appreciate it. Also, while you're right here, Lance, thank you so much for the support. I don't know if I mentioned this at all, but Lance is a channel member, so thank you for your support. I really do appreciate it. Thank you for taking the time out to do this video with me. I really do appreciate it. Once again, be sure to follow me on Instagram at SimonSabraYT. The link for that will always be down in the description. Once again, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, hit that bell so you never miss an upload, all of that good stuff. Go support Lance's socials. I'll leave those in the description as well. Like I said, he does have a Instagram and a YouTube channel. His channel is great. I love his like analysis style of videos. They're great.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. You got to teach me how to do those one day.
Hey, I will.
Yes, sir. And actually, I'm hoping to collab with you again on an analysis video sometime in the future, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there.
Yeah.
Lance, do you have any like final words real quick?
Be sure to subscribe to your boy because he makes a lot of great content. Especially, I love seeing like your review content, and of course the manga hauls and reading logs, and just hearing your opinions on stuff. So subscribe and support the boy, you know.
Thank you. Okay, and so that's pretty much it for me. This is Simon Sabra signing out. I catch you on the next one.